Step out and make sure 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. This is Penn Woods interviewing for the Oklahoma Living Legends. I'm at the apartment of Mr. C.R. Anthony. The date is November 22nd, I guess, of 1971. We're in the Skirvin Tower Hotel. Mr. C.R. Anthony is the founder of the C.R. Anthony chain of stores, which is one of the great chains of retail stores in the United States. He's an Oklahoman. His stores were founded in the state of Oklahoma. Mr. Anthony, I'd like to start off with, if you could tell us where you were born and just a little bit about your early boyhood.
I was born in Gibson County, Tennessee. That's in West Tennessee.
And when did you come to Oklahoma or to the Indian Territory?
I came to Indian Territory in January 1898.
Why don't you tell us what it was like when you first arrived and where you were?
Well, I arrived at Holdenville, and it was a new town, what they turned a government town site. There was two very small stores there, both the general stores and the frame buildings, and I got a job working in one of them, owned by Mrs. Scales, and worked there for some time.
Can you describe that store, what it was like at that time?
Oh, yes, it was a general store. There's a few dry goods, groceries, general merchandise.
From here, where did you go?
From Holdenville, I went to Wewoka in about 1908 and went to work for Governor John F. Brown. He was governor of the Seminole Nation at that time.
Mm-hmm. And could you tell us something about Governor Brown?
Oh, he was a Seminole Indian, very fine fella. He'd been the tribal governor for several years. And he had a general store, and I went to work in the office.
We did 13 interviews, and we woke up just this last week, last Thursday morning and afternoon. Mr. Anthony, I wonder if you could tell us what brought about the formation of the C.R. Anthony Company.
Well, I had went from Wewoka to Muskogee, and then from Muskogee I went up to Cleveland, Oklahoma, working for the J.P. Martin Company, and was there several years, and went then to Idaho working for the J.C. Penney Company. And I had been, of course, all my previous experience since '98 had been in the independent stores. And when I went to J.C. Penney Company in Idaho, we was in the chain store business, which was quite different from the independent operation. And I was there for about 3 years, and I was sold on the chain store operation. I came back to Oklahoma and went to work for the same fellow that I quit in Cleveland, Oklahoma.
You had a partner in your first store, didn't you?
In the first C.R. Anthony Company store, yes, I had two partners. That's the way we operated it. I had a third, and at that particular time I had 2/3, and the manager of the store had 1/3.
How did you all finance your first store?
I had an interest in the Martin Company when I came back to Oklahoma. I bought a third interest in the Cleveland, Oklahoma store on a credit to be paid for out of the profits without any interest. And that was 1918, and business was very good, and I made enough money to pay for my interest that year.
What were some of the major differences in merchandising at that time when you first started and today?
Well, the main difference 74 years ago in merchandising, especially in the independent stores, was not how cheap we could sell merchandise, but what would it bring? How much could we get for it? Our operation is not how much we can get for it, but how cheap can we sell it and still make a profit by knowing exactly what it costs you to do business and sell it then as cheap as you can and still make a profit.
The when you what led to the C.R. Anthony Company beginning to branch out?
Well, that was my idea of having a chain of stores. If you can operate one store, we operate on a cooperative basis. Our company today is owned by the employees and the managers of our store. I believe in having live money in your store. Now, I don't know whether you know the difference between live money and dead money. Live money is where you put not only your money, but you put your whole heart and soul in your work in your business. Dead money is by stockholders that's not interested in anything except their dividends. Now, we believe in live money. We have no outside stockholders at this time. All of our stock is owned by employees.
How long after you started your first store did you begin to branch out?
The next year. We opened our first store in the fall of 1922, and in 1923, the spring, we opened our second store at Chickasha, and that fall we opened another one at Anadarko, and it didn't take very much money to open a store at that time, say $10,000 or $12,000 capital, and we'd open a store.
Did you have the managers invested in it at that time, that early?
Yes, sir. I furnished the money. The rules of our operation was we had a manager of a store, and if he could manage that store and make enough money to open another store, why then we'd open another store, provided he had trained a man to operate the store, one that he believed in and one that he would put his money behind. And then we'd open another store. I'd furnish the new manager of the store for his interest, and the fellow that had furnished this man, he would have enough money to furnish his. That's the way we started.
Who were some of your early managers who became who grew up into the store and are still with it?
Well, most of the fellows that started out with me in 1922 have passed away. However, Mr. Zahn, who I knew in Idaho, Morris Lyons, Bob Frazier, those boys that I worked with out in Utah and Idaho, when I came back and went into business, they had gone into service, and when they came out of the service, World War I, they came with me with the understanding that we make money in the store, they could open a store and they'd have a third interest in it. And that's the way we started. We had the secret of our success has been our manpower.
How many stores do you have now?
312 operating.
In how many states?
21 states.
Was there any particular period of major growth, or has it been more or less steady?
Well, yes. We have acquired at different times about 5 different chains, some small. The largest chain we bought was about 80 stores. The W.G. Woodward Company, who operated principally in the north and northwest. That was been about 20 years ago. That was our year of greatest expansion. And since then, we have bought store chains with 18, some 12 stores.
Mr. Anthony, I'll digress away, and we'll probably go back to the store. But you've been involved in a lot of other things in Oklahoma and Oklahoma City, in addition to your merchandising. I know that you played a role in the past and in the United Appeal and in many other of the activities of Oklahoma City. I wonder if you could tell us that activity outside of your store which has meant the most to you.
Well, as far as investments, my only other investments in other business has been in banking business. And as far as civic duties, I've done a lot of work and had a lot of interest and believe in the YMCA.
Talking about the Y, how long have you been working with the YMCA?
Ever since I moved to Oklahoma City in 1927.
Where were they located at that time?
Where, the YMCA?
The YMCA, yeah.
Oh, here on, I believe it was 3rd Street, the old building.
Was that the one that was later converted to Kerr McGee, or was
That's
that?
right.
Mhm.
That's right.
That you know when that building was built?
No.
You don't know. It had been a long time.
Long time ago. Mr. J.B. White was the executive director at that time of the YMCA.
Could you tell a little about the work and growth of the Y over the years?
Well, it's been phenomenal, rightfully so, as long as Oklahoma City and metropolitan Oklahoma City has grown, and then we built the new building up on 5th and Robertson, and since then, why, we have 6 different branches of the YMCA.
What areas have you been involved in?
Well, I was treasurer of the YMCA for many, many years, up until about 2 years ago.
You've worked with over the years with many of the outstanding personages of Oklahoma City. Many people, many whom are still here, many of whom are no longer here. I wonder if you could name some that you feel over the years have played a most significant role in the development of Oklahoma City.
Well, I was a very close friend of our Senator Robert S. Kerr during his term as governor and also as senator. And, of course, Mr. Harvey P. Everest, Mr. Frank Sewell, who was president of the Liberty National Bank for many years.
Could you comment a little on Senator Kerr? He was quite an interesting and strong personality. Could you say a little about him?
Well, he was one of the greatest builders, and especially for Oklahoma, that it's ever been my privilege to know and work with. He was a great fella in every respect. He was honest and a tireless worker, and he was for Oklahoma first, last, and always.
That one, Willie. You've been on the board of the Liberty National quite a long time, haven't you?
I was on the board for something over 25 years, and I was chairman of the board for a number of years. However, I'm not on the board now anymore.
Can you tell something about the growth of the Liberty? We've seen it grow into what, at least the last report I had, I believe in deposits was larger than the state.
When I first went with them, they had a $12 million deposit. Then when we brought Mr. Frank Sewell in from Clinton, I think we had about 18 million. And when I retired as chairman of the board down there, we had about 350 million.
Mm-hmm. You know what it has now?
Something over 400 million.
And also they've just moved into this brand new building over here.
Yes, I'm not connected with them in any capacity at this time. Yes.
Mm-hmm. What other banks have you played a role in?
Well, a number of banks here in Oklahoma City. I've been one of the organizers of the Citizens National Bank. I was president of that for a number of years, inactive. Now I'm chairman of the board of the Citizens National, and it's grown from nothing in about 20 years to up about 70 million.
Who do you consider outstanding bankers of the state that you have known, both in those you've been connected with and in around the state?
Well, I consider Mr. Frank Sewell one of the soundest, best bankers that Oklahoma has had. Of course, he passed away a year or two ago. Mr. Harvey Everest succeeded Mr. Sewell, and he's a great person and a good banker, and built the Liberty up to about where it is now.
You had the unique position of being probably the only person in the country to have been both the husband and father of Mother of the Year in the state of Oklahoma and the father of a Mother of the Year nationally. This is, I wonder if you could tell a little bit about this selection, and also how it feels to be the man in that unique position.
Well, I never was much of a club man. Spent most of my time either at the stores or at home. And of course, I give my wife credit for having a very fine family. And she was, as you stated, Mother of the Year in 1955. And my daughter was Mother of the Year in Oklahoma and also national for 71. And it is. I'm very proud of the fact that she is.
Were you able to make the national meeting where it was announced?
Not for my daughter, no. I've been confined to my apartment now for about 9 months, most of the time.
And I believe her selection was during this past year.
Yes.
Now you have two sons and who play a role in the store. Could you tell a little about them?
Yes, both of my sons have been connected with us. In fact, while they was going to school in the vacation time, I had them working in the stores or on the farm. And when they graduated from college, after they've been with us, they've worked in the stores, and now they're both in the general office. And two of my daughters married young men that was working for us, and they are connected with us.
Do you tell their names?
Well, one of my daughters married Mr. Galloway. My oldest daughter married Bud Galloway, who has been with us for years and years. My other daughter, Betsy, married Fred Zahn. She's the one that was elected the National American Mother of the Year. My other daughter lives in Connecticut. Her husband is with the airlines.
Your store has grown and has purchased other stores during periods when some stores have grown, and been acquired and had gone broke. What do you feel is the secret to the success and growth of your store through this period, depression and these other things?
Well, I think the success of it is on the cooperative basis. The success has been due to the personnel in the stores and knowing what it takes to run a business. You've got to know how much it costs you to do business, and then sell your merchandise at the lowest price you can and still make a small profit. We believe in small profits and quick turnover.
Was your company a pioneer in this area of joint ownership between the management and the store and the management of the chain?
Well, I would say we were about second pioneers.
Who was first on that?
J.C. Penney Company.
Is this where is it from your work in the Penney Company that you acquired this idea?
Yes, sir. 100%.
You knew Mr. Penney personally, didn't you?
Very well, very well. Met him 3 years before, and talked to him for 3 years before I went to work for him, and quit a job. But Mr. Martin is getting $125 a month, and went to work for Mr. Penney out in Idaho for $75 a month.
Why did you make that change?
Sold me on the idea that after a year or two's time, I would have an interest in the store. When I went to work for him, the stores were operating under the name of the Golden Rule Company, and we were operating on a third basis, the same as we operated on for a number of years.
Mr. Penny was I believe, about the only non-Oklahoman ever to be admitted to the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. I believe the only one. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
What is this based on?
Well, his Mrs. Corn was the founder of the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, and Mr. Penny has done a lot for the state. Very fine organization, and I think he was entitled to belong to the Hall of Fame.
Could you tell us a little about Mr. Penny as a personality?
Wonderful personality. He was very strict. He was a teetotaler. Didn't believe in drinking or smoking either. But he was a hard worker, and he was very fair. I always found him to be very fair and a very fine personal man, and I learned a lot from him. And
he was also a very fine speaker, wasn't he?
Well, he finally developed into a speaker, but when I went with him in 1914, why, he was not a speaker in any sense of the word, but experience and with people, why, he finally developed into a very fine speaker.
How many stores were there of that, penny stores I'm speaking of, when you went with him?
There were 75 when I went with him.
Do you know how many penny stores are there?
About 1,600.
So it has grown as you have grown too.
Yes.
You've been active in the Chamber of Commerce, haven't you, Mr.?
Oh yes, ever since. I believe in you get out of your work just what you put into it, and you get out of your community just what you put into it, and you get out of life just what you put into it. And you have to live off of the community, and you should certainly support it. And I believe in supporting your community and the civic enterprises in every sense of the word.
I know you've contributed a lot in both resources and effort, and that that this has been recognized in an award I recall you're getting at a meeting I attended from the United Appeal of Oklahoma City. Could you you possibly were here in Oklahoma City when they began the community chest. Were you at that? Were you here then?
Well, I was the first president of the United Appeal. We had a community chest a number of years before that, but it hadn't been getting along very well. So then a lot of the merchants and so forth, we got together and organized a United Appeal. I was very much in favor of it and supported it and talked it up, and then I was elected president of it, and we went over the top in our appeal the first year.
What was the difference in the concept of the old community chest and the United Appeal?
Oh, I don't think there's very much difference, only we just needed reorganization and cooperation of everybody, and getting all the different agencies and to have one campaign to include all the agencies. And I believe in the United Appeal. I think that's the only way to take care of our charities.
What do you believe is the secret to the success of the United Appeal in Oklahoma City?
Hard work.
A lot of people are involved in that, aren't they?
Oh yes, thousands of them.
Were you here before the community chest was organized?
No, I don't believe so.
Mm-hmm.
I think we had a community chest about the time I first came here.
But you had a lot more fundraising drives overall for the operational basis.
Oh, yes, yes. There's no fun like work, regardless of whatever it is. And you make a success of what you put foremost in your mind. If you're going to work in a drive, why, you have to subscribe to it first yourself, be sold on it, and then believe in it and work at it.
You played a role in the Cowboy Hall of Fame, didn't you?
Yes.
Weren't you one of the original trustees?
Yes, sir.
Why don't you tell a little about the bringing of the Cowboy Hall of Fame to Oklahoma City, the competition that was involved, and how it happened to come to Oklahoma City?
Well, there was 17 states in the original organization, and there was a committee appointed from each of these 17 states, and they had their meeting. Of course, every one of the states would like to have had it in their state, but our Chamber of Commerce played a very, very important part in getting it located here by offering them the site and all the cooperation, and it was very centrally located, and it was decided to locate it here.
Did you attend the meetings where these decisions were made?
No, sir.
You did not?
No, sir.
Where the presentations were made. What do you feel were the reasons behind Oklahoma City being selected? You mentioned the Chamber of Commerce being behind it, which of course is one thing. What other reasons do you feel might have been behind the selection of Oklahoma City? There were about 100 towns originally wanted it.
Yes. Well, I give most of the credit, I believe, to Stanley Draper, president of our Chamber of Commerce, managing director at that time. And he just stayed behind these fellas and promised them, and not only promised them the land and say $1 million, but we fulfilled and lived up to that promise and raised the money.
It's now certainly one of the major museums in the world.
Yes, sir, and it's very fine. I believe in this Western heritage, to maintain it. Having lived here in the West since 1898, it's a great country, and I think we should preserve this Western heritage.
What do you feel would be the principal advice that you would give to young people who are starting out today in, say, a career in business?
Why, the principal thing to do is to work at the job. As I said before, you make a success of what you put foremost in your mind. And if you work, and if your present employee doesn't recognize it, someone else will if you are attending to business. Opportunities is greater today than I think it's ever been, because there's more business today, and there's fewer percentage of the younger people that want to apply themselves. And you need to have a lot of ambition and want to do something, want to build something. I've always wanted to start out to build something, make a success, and the opportunities still knocks today if the young people will take advantage of it.
Besides we've mentioned the Cowboy Hall of Fame, and we've mentioned the YMCA. Can you think of any other things that you've played a role in that you're most proud of?
Well, there's Boy Scouts, one, and we're very fortunate here in Oklahoma City is to having all of these different civic enterprises. They're all supported pretty well, and they've been well managed. And that's what makes our town what it is, makes our state. We're a new state, and I think we've come a long ways, and it's one of the best places that I know of to live. If I wanted to live somewhere else, I'd move tomorrow.
Mr. Anthony, I see that where our time is being called, we could talk for another 3 or 4 hours, I'm sure, but it looks like our time's being called on us. And This has been an interview with Mr. C.R. Anthony. The date is November the 22nd, 1971.